Welcome to On Point Tweener Week edition. James, no actual points races for the Kentucky Derby this weekend, but I heard that you may have sniffed out the next Mac the Man.
That's right. I've got a Hand of Power maiden winner, and he's going to make his stakes debut in Saturday's Pasco at 7 furlongs. And if he runs well there, then he'll be on to a couple two-turn preps, ideally. So we'll see if he's a real deal or not.
Yeah, Tampa Bay, a nice 11-race card on Saturday. Some other stakes as well. 3-year-old fillies involved. They really have a nice pattern of races that lead up to their Tampa Bay Derby. And, you know, honestly, this time of year we have Nyquist, champion 2-year-old. Moyman we'll see next week in the Holy Bull. Some names we all recognize, but really the general chatter has been that this is a down year from last year. It's still way early to be thinking about that, but I do think because of that, people are sort of looking for those maiden and allowance winners. I have Zulu very high on my top 10. I still think we have a lot to learn about this group, though.
Absolutely, and you know, Zulu is a very promising 3-year-old. You look at Pletcher this year; he doesn't have like the stock that he typically has, where he has a handful of like stakes winners by this point, or real promising sorts. And I think Zulu's like really his top prospect at this date. And you know, we'll talk about it more next week. But the Holy Bull on the 30th is really going to help give us an indication, because Moyman, Greenpoint Crusader, and Conquest Big E. So that's going to be a pretty quality race. It's going to help us sort out at least a little bit how these horses stack up.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised out of that race, especially Moyman with Kieran, if he runs well. I don't think we'll see him again until his final prep. Would be my guess.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, that's very likely. I think that's what he would love to do. That's what he was going to do with Cairo Prince after he ran after he ran in the Holy Bull, and you know, so I think there's, you know, even with more spirit in the Bob Lewis, he might have that same kind of idea where if he comes out with a good effort there, that he could just freshen him up for like San Diego Derby or Arkansas Derby.
Sure. Well, this time last year, American Pharoah was still a huge question mark. He was champion 2-year-old, but you know, there really wasn't an idea of. I don't think he had even been to the track yet.
Right.
In January. So yeah, I mean, a lot can happen, and the horses who were behind him, in front of him in the Breeders' Cup that actually ran, Texas Red and Calculator behind him earlier in the year, they look like they could be the ones, and then they, of course, neither made the Derby. So, yeah, a lot still to go, but I'm not a big fan of the wheat crop. And, I mean, they still have to beat each other, and even if they're all mediocre, someone's going to have to rise up and earn it. So that's part of the fun for me. But, yeah, going back to Zulu, I do have him pretty high up. I respect his talent. But you made some good points about sort of the path he's on, and all Gulfstream, and then has to ship to Churchill. Really hasn't worked for Pletcher.
Yeah, I went and looked at it last year with Materiality, and you know, he's had Materiality, Gemologist, Dunkirk, and Verrazano. A lot of real, like, you know, well-regarded 3-year-olds that have just run at Gulfstream, and I couldn't find a Derby winner, you know, as far back as I could go, that had only run at one track exclusively before he arrived at Churchill Downs. So I do think there's something to be said for the, you know, experience of running, you know, at a different tracks before you get there, because it's just such an extreme environment the Kentucky Derby is.
Yeah, no, agreed. And you know, initially I said Dunkirk and Verrazano were both unraced as 2-year-olds, so Zulu does have that going for him. But it's interesting that one thing they have in common would be only Gulfstream, and I sort of lean toward you, although Verrazano did ship to the Wood Memorial.
Oh, okay, that's right. Verrazano did. You're right.
Yeah.
He did.
But
he even had It's a Knockout, and the luster came off a little bit when he didn't run well in the Florida Derby. But you know, he could have shipped him for another race because he had Materiality, and instead he kept him at Gulfstream. So that running exclusively one track. One other factor I'll bring up is you know, Mo Tom won that LeCompte last weekend, and another, you know, Uncle Mo will be interesting to see how his offspring shake out, because he's got a lot of prospects right now.
Yeah, well, it's important to talk about all those machinations, because Triple Crown nominations will be out shortly, and then right after that is the second future pool. So plenty of opportunity to put these opinions in action, and I might actually do it a little earlier. I'll be in Las Vegas next week, and if Zulu is still 65-1, I might take a shot.
I reckon you probably will.
So we'll see what happens out there. We'll see what happens this week, and we'll talk about it next week on Point.
All right, look forward to it.